wanted to start by taking the time to thank you both, Seth and Nirva, for chatting with us at The Christian Beat, all about your most recent release, and we'll see where else the conversation goes. But I wanted to start with On Earth. And I'm just curious, with it being such a focused from a theme perspective, when you first had that idea and kind of how that came to you.
Yeah, well, thanks for having us on, Jesse. We appreciate it. And yeah, it started, let's see. I just said we try not to get you in trouble, but we might just jump right in here. But we started back in 2020. And, really it was an interesting time for everybody. I think Nirva began to write these songs during all the lockdowns and stuff that were going on. We had just moved out there to California to work at a church. And, but anyways, we were, listen to a message, or we'd be praying, and she would just come out and have these melodies and pick up her guitar and start strumming it. And so, I'd be like, oh man, that's I like that. I'm kind of, feeling that. So let me jump in here with you. And so as we started doing it, I think the theme slowly came. It wasn't something we sat out from the beginning and said, hey, it's time we do a new project. Let's do it on this theme. It was more like, in fact, in the time I was, just really long story, really short, was kind of struggling with just doing music anymore. I had gotten to a frustrated place and just felt like, I think I just want to move on. So, but thankfully God didn't share that with me, and he's began to give her these songs, and they just kind of came out of a place we had started years before that, really diving into cultural issues and from a biblical worldview perspective. And so now we're on lockdown and had even more time to dive into issues. We began to see, just different tactics that the enemy was using to really capture people's minds and hearts and to bring destruction. He always comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And so during that process, we were like, man, we see how the enemy's works are here. We have to armor up as God's children. We have to stand strong. We have to pray that his kingdom will come on earth as it is in heaven. We have to do all these things and kind of face the battle. So that was sort of what was swirling around as Nirva began to get these melodies and play these songs. So anything you want to add to that, babe?
No, that was it. I think just thinking through things, and the songs will sometimes come through after listening to a message, or just a devotional time, or just a natural prayer. And that's a prayer that we hear often. We may take for granted, but then when you really think about those passages, it's like, yeah, we need to pray this. We need to sing this, and we really need to really intentionally with thought really meditate on this as an intercession.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So now I'm curious, since you said the theme wasn't something you started with, it kind of evolved as you go. When did you know that the project was complete as the whole then?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know that you know that you know that you know. Maybe some people do.
That's about you, an old school preacher. Do you know that you know that you know?
That you know. But that's a great question. You sort of sometimes it's just an instinct or a step of faith, really. You're like, should we do more? Is this it? Let's just present this. Let's just give this, or let's just serve this. How do you feel about, how do you know? Because you can take that approach through every song. Like, how do you know when this song is done? How do you know when this EP is done? How do you know when but I think it's
usually I know when I'm done with the song when I'm really, really, really sick of it.
That's one
I'm like,
way
okay, I've done the
that's
yes.
one way. Sure.
But no, it's
great.
It's I think it's kind of an ebb and flow thing. Like, when you're decorating a room or something, not that I'm like, I kind of want her to do that, but
yeah.
There's a point when it's like, you can be obsessive and keep tweaking and all that. But there's a point when you get to, you're like, okay, I think it's time. Like, and I think for us, when we got done writing, kind of working on Never Be Forgotten, it felt like, okay, I think this is, we have a theme, like you talked about. Here's a theme for this thing. It feels good. It's like we've been working on this the last couple years. Let's go ahead and put this out. This marks this time in our lives and what God was doing and saying. So it was kind of like that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. I'm always curious about those types of things.
Okay.
That's a great question.
So I also know that you were able to interact with some of the Liberty students that you're involved with on this project. So I assume they got a pre-listen, if you will, to some of the project as they were involved. But I'm curious how their interaction, their kind of response either mirrors or is different in ways to like the overall listener response that you've gotten over the past couple of weeks now that it's out there for real, if you will.
Good question.
I love these questions. It's funny because I think college students have a way of being so honest with you in their expression and their feedback, and you sort of put it out there. You show them your art, and you just trust the response. But I think there was one class I was able to just kind of show the video for Armor, and it was in a presentation where I was just kind of admonishing them to just really put on the armor, really do this. Let's just really be about the kingdom. One of the Liberty University's mission statement is training champions for Christ. And we were just kind of stewing on that theme. But after I played the video, there was just this sober kind of quiet response. And then I saw one face go, that was really good. And that's all I needed. That was all I needed. But as far as comparing and contrasting the overall response, I think it's more in your face when you're at Liberty and you can see their response. But where social media, people just kind of message you and encourage you. And they're honest too. They give you negative and positive feedback. But there's something about that face-to-face interaction when you're really seeing the natural response to something. And I would say that would be the difference.
It was cool. I think one of the other professors in the business class actually wanted to play it for a devotional. And so she invited Nirva to come over. And she just kind of saw the kids, like when the beat kicked in, it was like, nodding. It's like, feeling it a little bit. So no, but it's been inspirational for us because we're not the spring chickens we once were. And so we're my interests have changed too. Like I used to be a music head where I was just always listening to the latest and greatest thing. Now it's like I'm more apt to listen to a podcast or a message sermon while I'm driving rather than the latest pop hits. Song or something. But one of the things that the students have done is like keep us into that, because we had with her teaching music and stuff like that, she's bringing home these songs, and every now and then I'm like, oh, that actually still sounds good in the midst of this musical chaos that's out there. But they're kind of keeping us inspired, and the students are so talented and so gifted. And that's why we even had one end up featuring on a song, had some of them involved with the video, because it's just been kind of mutual inspiration that's been going on in that way. So it's really encouraged us and kind of like got us back into the mix of music world, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And also I've fallen in love with the students there and have a heart for them. So the ones that I have a relationship with, it's like my ministry is geared towards them, so to speak. It's like I am singing to them, I'm cheering for them, I'm pushing them on towards the mark, and it's like it's a great place to do it, because it's one of the few places that a lot of universities don't claim Jesus as Lord today. And it's like Christ is Lord here. I can unapologetically just proclaim his word, his goodness, and let's just do music and ministry from that place. And so it's a beautiful campus, and it's a wonderful place to minister.
And that is a good point, babe, that it's like, there's musical swirling inspiration going on, but there's also like this mentor aspect, and out of that you end up writing. I mean, we even adjusted some of the lyrics and ideas just based on interactions with the students and along those lines. So all that kind of mixed together.
That's awesome. And I'm sure that those songs in that kind of setting were able to kind of open up dialogue and start to have kind of those, I don't want to say tough conversations, but, get into the tougher kind of stuff that you want to actually talk through and things like that. And I'm curious how, because I know you have your podcast as well. So I'm curious how you kind of have seen where you can intersect those worlds with, the music and the podcast world, but they still have that underlying message that you're trying to get out.
Yeah, we like to have it all integral. We don't want to sing about one thing and then kind of have a podcast about another thing. Hopefully, it's all cohesive. But I think it's important. It's like I always encourage the students, like you have the right to sing about what you believe and to preach about what you sing. And so it's like when you're able to do that, because it's all based on God's word and it's all based on truth, there's no reason to shrink back. There's no reason to hold back. But as far as where we share and how we intersect that, first, I want to go on record and say that our podcast is separate from Liberty University. But the issues that we discuss is Seth Nirva. I just want to clear the air. But when you walk in truth and you walk in love, you pray that you are able to share those things and impart those things that help others to do the same. And so what does God have to say about this? What does God have to say about government? What does God have to say about family? What does God have to say about marriage? Finances, all of the above. And so from the places that we've just learned and really kind of tried to dig into, we apply biblical principles and we just impart and share it.
Yeah, I think Nirva said it so well. The only thing I'd add to that is, I think through our songs, we have been trying to increasingly do that in the past few years. It's like, because we've been in a journey, we've been in like where our perspectives on things have shifted as we've tried to understand the Bible better and like be willing to sacrifice even propaganda we bought into over the years for the sake of taking on more truth. And as we've done that, it's like, man, can we write these songs? Nirva was recently writing a paper on Reformation and music, and just how Martin Luther and many of the reformers used music intentionally to shape the theology and to go along with the messages that they were writing about. I think art at its best, does that. It's like we utilize it and it's all this cohesive thing, bring beauty, goodness, and truth, come together in these mediums. And so, we, on our podcast, for instance, we will talk about things like the World Economic Forum and Klaus Schwab and how, there's this depopulation agenda and all this kind of crazy stuff. But we wrote a song called Fire Fall, where like in the first verse was saying, like, open the floodgates of heaven, come and destroy the wickedness in the earth, show forth your justice in the land. And sometimes when I'm writing that, I'm thinking about that, Lord, tear down these structures that are trying to deceive people and trying to kill people and trying to do that stuff. And we actually used a message, part of a preaching message in that song from a movie, which is called Enemies Within the Church. And it's not a light movie. It's a somewhat of a controversial movie, but the message is so powerful from Reverend Kerry Gordon. And what they're doing in that movie is exposing really how, in some cases, people have even been planted within Christian universities and high up in Christian institutions to bring kind of a Marxist agenda into the church. And they're exposing those things. And it's very interesting, how he does that. So we included that in the song, but you wouldn't necessarily walk away from the song having all those details. So it's kind of like, here's the song. It opens up the conversation. Let's go deeper on this, and we'll present kind of what these guys are talking about and trying to mix it all together. We have had, we've had some very interesting conversations with students the past couple years, and we're trying to do our best, because they don't always get this stuff. You're not going to get it on mainstream media. But unfortunately, you're not going to get it enough even in our churches. And so we're just trying to do our little part to help bring that in the
dialogue.
mix of what we're aware of and how we fight these spiritual battles.
Absolutely. We've been talking a good bit of what you have been up to and what you've been releasing and projects that you have shared. So I'm just curious if there's anything you want to talk about of what you're up to now and what you're looking forward to in the coming weeks, months, whatever time frame.
Yeah.
You know, just more of the same, of just staying on top of keeping the main thing first, seeking first the kingdom of God and all that we do in our music, in our podcasting, in our living, in our ministry, in our marriage. And I think we don't have any specific plans. I think God is sometimes more brilliant at planning our lives than we are. But, you know, we'd love to tour. We'd love to travel. We're open for dates. We've got a few things on the calendar in the area and a couple things in Nashville coming up. But yeah, hopefully more music coming up. We'll do some more writing, some more. We'll stay on top of things as far as Freemind and the podcast. And
yeah,
I think, love.
Yeah. No, that's great, babe. I think, you know, even spiritually, the Lord has been just challenging us to get in his presence more and not just be busy, you know, because it's so easy to get caught up in doing things all the time. And so it's like, okay, we also need to really just spend time before his, you know, throne and seeking his face and hearing, you know, from the Lord as much as possible and starting from that place. But I do feel I kind of have some rough ideas of some future stuff. So I did, you know, we actually moved into this house in Virginia here and built it kind of like this loft. I'm planning on, like, in the next couple of years, shooting these videos where we talk about culture and these issues, but also do arts, like do a couple songs, like maybe even students do songs. So that's part of it. But next summer I'm trying to route some tours where we can go to churches and speak and sing. We kind of do both because we do feel like, you know, we're probably most passionate about the message that God has put on our heart, but we use music as kind of the means of opening doors and communicating that. So that would be that, in addition to just doing the stuff she's doing at Liberty and everything like that.
That's awesome. Well, I know we're getting close to time, so I want to be respectful of that. So I'll close with one final item. I don't know if it's a question, but if it give you the opportunity to share encouragement, a quick, you know, message or something with those that come in contact with either your podcast, your music, whatever you want to share, just a few minutes for that.
Yeah, I would encourage those who listen to our music or give it a listen to just thoughtfully and intentionally really hone in on our relationship with Christ and God through Christ, and to just really know that God has not left us to be wimps or orphans, that we have everything we need for life and godliness, that the struggle is real, the battle is real. Sometimes it's within and sometimes it's external, but we can always go to him. We can always go to him in prayer. We can armor up. We can lift our minds. We can lift our hearts to him and receive what we need from his throne of grace. And so be encouraged, be an encouragement to others. Hold on to your common sense, because that's a huge thing these days, that God is wise. He's all powerful. He is love, and he is for us. And if God be for us, who can be against us?
Yeah, that's good. And I would just add, you know, just, you know, to keep the focus on the Great Commission, like Jesus, he said that all authority in heaven and on earth is given to him. Therefore, go and disciple the nations, baptizing in the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey all that he's commanded. And I think, you know, right now it's easy to kind of like run for the hills or just, you know, back out of the battles that are going on. But it's really, I think, important that we recognize, no, Jesus is he is enthroned. He is King of Kings, and So we go forth and we just start, with discipling whoever God gives us. If it's our kids, we disciple our kids, and I think we have to pick back up that mantle. We let the government schools do it too long, and we're reaping the fruit of that. And so I want to encourage, especially parents and people in church that are serious about the faith. Don't put it in the realm of the spirit only. It's spirit that's supposed to be, that's what Jesus prays. The on earth message is, let your kingdom come, let your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So we want his will to be done, his rule to be done in everything that we have say over. And I think we can be, we can rejoice and be victorious even in the midst of things that are falling apart. And because I heard this recently, the job in our culture of deconstruction is being done for us. So all we have to do is point at the clowns with the chainsaws, right? And so we can say, this is where godlessness leads, not to you.
No, you're good.
This is where godlessness leads. And so now we have the opportunity to actually build something and construct something that starts with Christ as Lord. And so we do that in small ways. We do that with joy, and we go forward in Jesus' name. So.
Absolutely. I just want to thank you again, both Seth and Nirva, for chatting with us today. I'd love to hear more about your heart behind your work.
Thank you, Jesse. Thanks for having us, and blessings on all that you're doing as well for the kingdom.
Thank you so much.
Enjoyed this.